Okay, so we're going to learn Dhamma to Chela Gimel.
So why does he have 3 different Hakdamas?
Why does he have so many Hakdamas? Okay, let's read it inside and let's see what happens. I'll read it. I'm reading from the Schwartz edition. We have the other editions here handy for consultation as necessary. We've clarified numerous times the main goal in this book. The main goal, there are secondary goals, but the main goal is lahavir masha efshar lahavir u'maaseh bereshis u'maaseh ekol. To clarify what's possible to clarify from Maaseh bereshis and Maaseh ekol. Behetem l'misha l'ma'anoi chubar hasefer hazeh. In such a way that's appropriate for the person to whom be able to get this, for whom this book was authored. Thank you. With a view to him for whom this treatise has been composed. So right away the Rambam says, what's the matar of the Sefer? Mainly Maaseh Bereshis, Maaseh Ekol, for a certain audience. And the audience is for he for whom this book was composed. You want to know who that is? Of course, you have to go back to the Geras, to the Talmud. The Rambam describes the Mavucha that gives rise to who's the Navai. And it's that kind of person that the exposition of Maaseh Bereshis, Maaseh Ekol, this book, is targeted to. If Harnu Shadvarim Elohim B'chal Sisrei Torah, we have clarified that Maaseh Bereshis, Maaseh Ekol are included in Sisrei Torah. And you know that the Chazal denigrated someone who reveals Sisrei Torah. I'm sorry, I skipped something. They've clarified the reward of someone who hides the Sisrei Torah, which to the Bali Ha'in are very clear. So the Rambam says that Maaseh Bereshis, Maaseh Ekol is part of Sisrei Torah. Sisrei Torah, Chazal said, you can't be Megala. And so if you hide them, the person to whom they're very clear, a Bali Ha'in to whom it's very clear, hides them, he gets a tremendous reward. The reward, these great treasures are going to be for whom? The great reward prophesied by Yeshai is going to go to the one who hides those things that the Ancient One of Days revealed. What does it mean the Ancient One of Days revealed? So you see the Rambam says, hi, welcome. The Rambam says that, take a Yaakov Weinberg, Shalom Aleichem, Rebbe Kagan, take and grab whatever edition finds favor in your eyes. That you're not going to be able to use because that's. This one? You can take off. Maybe this one. I'd recommend either this one or this one. So we're doing the Hakdama to Chela Gimel. So the Medrash says, the Chazal say that someone who hides those things that the Ancient One of Days revealed. So what does it mean that the Ancient One of Days revealed? That's what Rambam paraphrased earlier, and he said, the things that are clear to the Bali Ha'in, that's his exposition of this Memor Chazal. What does it mean that he's hiding the things that Hashem revealed? It means a person to whom they're revealed. For some people they're revealed, but for a Bali and the Brumum Chavar. And he hides them despite this. So we're doing the Hakdama to Chelik Shlishiyah. No, Hakdama to Chelik Gimel. So you have to go, keep going. No. Go further than this. Yeah. The Sefer is to Halakim. We're doing the Hakdama to Chelik Gimel. Okay. So Father Rambam said that the purpose of this book is Maaseh Bereshis, Maaseh Ekol, which is Sisrei Torah. And Sisrei Torah, Chazal said you shouldn't reveal. And they also said that one who hides these things that are clear to him will receive a great reward. Havin Eifa es midasei shema shedrichu elav im atem min hamevinim. The Rambam says a cryptic statement telling us that if you're from the Mevinim, meaning not everyone's able to understand this Memor Chazal. Not everyone's able to understand this Chazal and what the great schar. Why is it such great schar? Why is it Gadol Ma'od? Schar for hiding Sisrei Torah, and why is there this juxtaposition of the fact that he's hiding something which the ancient one of days revealed? There's some side over here that I don't understand. If you're from the Mevinim, then you'll understand what Chazal are guiding you towards. What the Rambam is alluding to, I don't know. And why the Rambam goes into this whole shmooze, I don't know either. But let's read on to get the tour of the parak in general, and then we'll analyze it more closely. So the Rambam so far said that he wants to talk about Ma'aseh Makavah. That's the purpose of the Sefer, but those are part of Sisrei Torah. Sisrei Torah, you're not supposed to reveal. In fact, he gets tired by not revealing them, and you'll understand that if you're a Maven. His Barer, I'm sorry, let's get the line again. Hey Meviris, I'm Kusesh of Ma'aseh Makavah. They clarify the Ma'aseh Makavah, now he shifts to Ma'aseh Makavah, because Chilek Gimel he talks about Ma'aseh Makavah. The next 7 prakim are about Ma'aseh Makavah. So now he's focusing specifically on Ma'aseh Makavah. And they clarified its depth, as the Rusa, the Das HaMayin, and how foreign it is to the masses. Ma'aseh Makavah, to the masses, is very foreign. You tell them what this is all about, they're not going to understand you. His Bara, Shenezah Be'isur Torah. It's also with a prohibition of the law. Amisha Nichan B'Havanosai, and someone who has granted understanding, is prohibited. L'Lamid U'Lahasbir, Afilas Hamida She'es Baralai, even the degree that you know, because saying that became clear to you. You're not allowed to teach it. Elabal Peh, Li'achad HaMatur. You're only allowed to teach it orally. You're not allowed to write it down. That's very important. It's never written down, the Rambam says. Very important. Only with the old Torah Shabbat, it wasn't written down. We'll get to that. But also, you're only allowed to teach it to people of special qualities. Right? You know, Mon Chagiga. Now, by the way, I just want to comment on this. If the Rambam is just coming to say that, hey, I have a problem, I'll teach Ma'aseh Makavah, what does he need this whole arichas about? Ma'aseh Bereishis, Ma'aseh Makavah is part of Sisrei Torah. Sisrei Torah, Chazal said you shouldn't be regala and you get schar if you hide them. Ma'aseh Makavah you can't teach, we know that already. It's a Mishnah. And that's why I was about to go into this whole thing, that on the one hand I can't teach, and on the other hand I decided I have to teach it for whatever reason, we'll see. And that's his tension over here. What does he need this whole akdama with this about Ma'aseh Bereishis, Ma'aseh Makavah, Nichol, and Sisrei Torah? Of course they are. And even if they're not, the Mishnah says, Ein Doishim B'Ma'aseh Makavah, so that's your problem. So what do? How do you write a book about it? That's a question which I'm going to leave for now. Look, upon him, he has a problem that you can't teach except orally, and your student has to be of very high caliber. And even to that student, you have to teach it in a Rosh Prakim way. Now the Rambam takes a detour. And he says, this is the cause. Ma'aseh Bereishis and Ma'aseh Makavah have been completely lost from the nation. Nothing is left from it. Not a little, not a lot. It was appropriate that this should happen. What's your translation there? Let's hear another translation. What do we have in Kappa? You haven't found it?
No, I don't know.
Let me see. Let me see where we are. Yeah, here we're Roy, like fourth line there. Okay. Okay. Roy Shekachi Asala. This was it had to happen like this. Is up in his translation. It had to happen. Since these secrets were transmitted orally, oral transmission is going to eventually be lost. Very interesting. Rambam is telling us something very important. He's telling us that since it was an oral transmission, it would eventually get lost, and this could have been predicted. So this is, as I noted, is going to the shtickle detour over here and saying, Vibaltas, there was this whole prohibition against writing it down, and you have to give it over. Pelepeh, that's why it got lost. And of course you have a question, well, what was God thinking? What do you mean? So Torah Shabbat Peh eventually gets lost, so it's a bad method of transmission then. What was the plan?
He also claims to have gotten it from somebody else.
Who?
Rambam.
Right, so what?
No, he's saying everything's each with the each.
Right.
And it's not written down.
Right.
He never says I got it from somebody
No,
else.
he'll say the
He
opposite.
says the opposite. I did it
Rediscovered
myself.
it, right. You rediscovered it. No, but I'm asking, right. Oh yeah, exactly. The Rambam, right? It's very important. The Mekubalim, there's Kodesh and others take great issue with this idea because they say there's Kabbalah, as in there's a tradition about Sisri Torah. Rambam says there's not Ma'at and not Harbe. There's nothing left, but he was able to, however he did it, rediscover it. Okay, so notice that he goes on to this detour and says that it was lost, and the reason why it was lost is because there's limitations in how it should be taught.
That would answer what you're asking.
What?
That would sort of answer what you're asking.
Which question? Of what was the plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if it could be rediscovered, it's fine.
Oh, okay. So why is it supposed to be lost for the time that it was supposed to be lost, though? Okay, that's a fair question, right? In other words, in as much as it's so, in other words, you're accepting my question and saying obviously the Torah wasn't designed to be lost, but you're saying, but it wasn't designed to be lost forever, and that's okay. But it could be lost for a long time.
If people have the potential to rediscover.
Okay, so that's I think their answer, but there's more depth to that because we have to understand why is it okay for the Torah to be lost for a certain tkufa, and then to be rediscovered. And as much as these stuff are important.
Does he have a position as to when it was lost?
Let's see. Oh, that's a good question too. Since that's the case, and by the way, notice that he says why was it lost? Because it wasn't written in a book. He reiterates that. He doesn't say because of the special audience necessary. That point. He doesn't say because it's only can be taught to certain people. He says because it wasn't written in a book, which means also Torah Sheba Halacha should have also been lost, except it was written down. And he says so explicitly. We'll look at Chelik Alf Paragraph Alf. All of Torah Sheba would have been lost at some point, except Rabbi Yehuda Nasi took measures to stop that from happening, right? Because the reason why Torah Sasod was lost is because it wasn't written. Anything that's not written is eventually going to get lost. When is oral transmission safe, and when does it become choppy? Right? That's an important question. We'll get to that. Since that's the case, what tactic, what stratagem can I use to draw attention? El Mashaulai his galas barabis chaverli, the loy suffix. Very interesting that he says what may have appeared. He uses three lashonos over here. His gala, his bar, his chaver. And what's the ulai?
He doesn't have it.
What does he have?
Just his scholar. That's why I couldn't follow.
Yeah, could you read that sentence there?
So v'kimin shadavar kach ha'ech emtzel the eitz of the higher al mashu'ulay nisgalah v'nisbarli v'nisbar b'li safik l'daiti.
Oh, okay. So he has three lashonos there. But the question is right. Where to put the comma with it? Yeah. There's going to be differences. It's hard to do this. What does he mean? Well, how can I do this? He means I'm not supposed to. So he said in the beginning of this chapter, we're not supposed to teach us Torah. So how can I teach it? Maybe you could teach it orally, but he's not talking face to face with his Talmud. Okay, we'll get to that soon. So he's stuck. And this, I just want to bring back the question I asked in the beginning. The Rambam just to tell that he has a problem. Now he's supposed to teach. What does he have to go into this whole thing about Ma'aseh Bereishis? It's part of Ma'aseh Torah and his reward for it. You can't teach Ma'aseh Bereishis. You say that Ma'aseh Torah. Okay, so Elamai he can't teach it. So maybe he shouldn't teach it. He monos milichtav davar mashes Galilee to refrain from writing that which has been revealed to me. You know, he's calling it revelation. Kach shadvarim yoivdu im uvdani, so that this knowledge gets lost when I perish. She'ein monos mimenu, I'm certainly going to die. And if I die, says the Rambam, the knowledge can be lost. Now, why is the knowledge can be lost? Let's just take a break over here. Why is knowledge can be lost when the Rambam dies? What? He only has it, but why doesn't he teach it orally? Why does he say, if I don't write this down, he monos milichta, if I don't write it down, the knowledge is going to be lost when I die? Well, maybe there's going to be someone to teach it to. What?
In theory, you can give it over orally.
You can give it over orally. So this we have to look back at Chelik Aleph, where he talks about the Talmud, his Talmud.
He does have just a little bit of variation. It says, Achi avadnu be'avdi asher efshe b'ladav.
Right.
He's saying that it can't, the world can't.
No, Yefshe b'ladav of my death. Yeah.
So why is he talking in third person?
No, of it, my perishing. It's impossible. It's inevitable. My perishing, my death is inevitable.
But the subject sounds like is the knowledge.
The last subject was his death. The knowledge will be lost. Right. Right, that's a parenthetical. Right, that's going back on his. Yes. Yeah. Yes, certainly. So he's saying his death is inevitable. I'm saying I don't have dreams of living forever, which by the way is just an interesting thing to remember. So listen, I'm going to die, rediscovery, right? As is inevitable. Unless he means the perishing of the knowledge is inevitable. Is that where you're going?
That's what I thought.
Okay, fine. That could be also. Fine, that could be also.
What is it?
But why is that inevitable? Fine. No, I hear. But why is it inevitable? I hear what he's saying. But why is it inevitable that the knowledge will perish when the Rambam dies? Because he doesn't have a means of oral transmission. Right? Why isn't he have a means of oral transmission? Because the Talmud, and this is the letter to the Talmud, in the beginning, we have to go back to the Gersh of the Talmud. He says, you were with me, and I was teaching you things. You wanted me to teach you things, and I had a method of teaching you, etc. Kasha gozar hakel shani parade. When God decreed that we should separate, and you went off, then I made this decision that I have to write things down. So the fact that the Rambam was separated from his Talmud, he calls that in the letter to the Talmud a decree of God. And now the Rambam is in this state where the person to whom he has to give over his teaching was decreed from God that they should be face to face. So now there's no method of oral transmission possible. Yeah? What?
It's very presumptions.
Yeah, there's not going to be anybody else.
Maybe another Talmud. I want to tell you something. Take a look.
Maybe he wasn't supposed to know.
Oh, 1 second. We'll get to that soon. I want to tell you like this. I have this is a horror. I'm not going to go into every horror tonight. You could just speak one thing and go into it. Every single practice is gold. But take a look at Chilek Gimel, Perek Mem Aleph. You don't have to look this up if it's it's not important. I'll tell you that, but you have to look it up. The Rambam says Chilek Gimel Perek Mem Aleph. So you're going that way. Yes.
Perek which?
Mem Aleph. Tami HaMitzvahs is towards the beginning of the parak. These are the program of Tami HaMitzvahs. And Rambam says what the reason for Kasha Yitin Mum Ba'adam Keini Nasan Bay. Kasha Yitin Mum Ba'adam Keini Nasan Bay. What's the reason for that? Towards the beginning of the parak. So I'll read it inside. He says, Misha Chisa Ever Yechusa Ever Kamaisa. Someone who makes someone lose a limb, it's fair that he should also lose a limb. Kasha Yitin Mum Ba'adam Keini Nasan Bay. So that's the time. He's going with this idea that right, it's fair that a person should lose what he caused. Wait a second, you're going to say, what do you mean I'm telling you the time? I'm giving you a reason for the mitzvah. I'm saying it's fair that a person that made someone lose a limb should lose a limb. But Lamaisa, it's not what we do, we make him pay. So why am I giving you a reason for Ein Tach Zayin Mamish? Answer is, Ki matarasi ashav lasas tamim l'ksuvim, v'lo lis tamim l'halach. Tamei HaMitzvahs, for some reason, deal with what's written in the Torah, not with the halach. Af, shegam al halach hazoi yish li deil, she'oisa ashmiya bapeh. Also, because I have an opinion about the Ein Tach Zayin being mamin, the halacha shabai, that I'm going to tell you about that. And for some reason, that opinion is probably something like the idea that there is a mokum for Ein Tach Zayin mamish in some sense, whatever the Rambam's secret was, which nobody knows. I tried to find out. No one knows. It means, but the Rambam was telling the Talmud, we're going to meet again. Now, did he ever meet him and tell it to him about that? I don't know. I don't know if it ever happened. But it suggests that he was planning on meeting him again. And the whole premise of the book is that if I don't write this down for you, how am I going to teach you everything?
Is the assumption that...
And then he says, as we're going to be the next line, he says, but I have to write it down because I owe it to you. I can't not teach you what I know. What about that piece of Torah? I'm trying to Ein Tach Zayin. What about the same problem the Rambam has over here? Should apply to that. Yeah, we'll see. That the Rambam says, I have to teach it to you, I have to give it to you.
When he wrote the letters, is the assumption that it was only going to stay with the Talmud?
No.
It seems like he was planning...
No. It says explicitly even here, it's for you and everyone like you.
Right. So then it's not...
So
just because it says Shtush Malabah means it's something I don't want to write down. That's it. It's not necessarily specifically this.
No, that's not true. Because he says, say first person singular, you will hear from me. There's two things that are going on in the Nebuchim in terms of the audience. There's the Talmud and there's everyone else. And a lot of times there's words that are directed to the Talmud as an individual. And you have to figure out, are there two audiences to the Sefer and how do they interact? Okay? And then you go through the Sefer, if you want to know what the Talmud was like, you go through the Sefer and you see certain things Rambam says, certain things he thinks he has to tell her. And that's a window into the Talmud. But again, there's a dual audience. And it's a very interesting question about, and it might be two different descriptions even of the audience. One is the Talmud and those like him, and one is a different audience. Okay, but you will hear from me singular certainly talking to the Talmud. And here also he's talking to the Talmud. Because, let's see what he says in the next sentence. So he says, maybe I shouldn't write it, and when I die, they're going to be lost. Why? Because as we said, God decreed that they shouldn't be face to face. As it says in the Psicha, in the first Psicha, the letter to the Talmud that the Sefer begins with. Niraz be'enai, so why can I do that? Niraz be'enai kipuach godel shel zechuscha. That seems to me would be a great robbing you of your rights. Uzchus kol novich. And everyone else who's novich like you. So you see, there's two people there. There's him and everyone who's like him. Mimishi himagieloi. I'm sorry. Chzelas chus mimishi himagieloi. It would be like I'm being mekapeach. I'm withholding something, yuschus, and I'm stealing from someone who deserves something. Oy kina b'yerush al yushasei. Or it would be like begrudging or being jealous of an heir. His inheritance. So what's the suffix? Ram has tut stadim. What it would have been like? What are the tut stadim? It's another makamiyan. What are the tut stadim? It would be either like zela of a schos mishum agieloi. Yeah, oishik maybe different ways to translate, but stealing someone of something that's his. That's like, let's get a little lumdish over here. A yerush doesn't have any schusim b'chayim, right? His Moirish might try to circumvent the Yerusha, but he doesn't have any schusim. It's not gzela. If a Moirish circumvents the Yerusha by giving away all his assets before his death, he's not doing gzela in any way, but it's was epis verginznisht. Yerusha has a pshat, for whatever reason Yerusha is appropriate, right? You have to look in Tamei HaMitzvot maybe to see why Yerusha is appropriate to understand this passage. That's one kind of mida megunin, because Rambam's about to say, kol achas mishte'elet. Kol achas mishte'elet. There's two things over here. Don't kid yourself. Rambam says two things. There's two things that he's bavarning, and he reiterates it. Each of these two things, tchuna meguna, is a mida meguna, a blameworthy characteristic. Both of these traits are blameworthy. So Rambam had a suffix. Is it like zela to the Talmud hotshain aschus that the Rambam is depriving him of, and it's zela, or he's like a yairish? You have to understand what that suffix is. Is the suffix totally in the nature of the Talmud? What is that suffix totally in? Is it something that the Rambam doesn't know about the Talmud? It's also not going to go into that. But the Rambam says, so why not? So maybe I should steal it from you. No, it's a mida meguna. Mida meguna. Mida meguna. If it wouldn't be a mida meguna, I'm just finished saying you can't teach Ma'aser Merkava, nothing to do. Follow the law. It's a law. It's a Mishnah. I'm not in reference to the Mishnah, but he basically brings us back to the Mishnah. There's a reference to Furish, right? But if I follow the law, I'm going to be doing something that's I'm going to have bad midas. Tehila, Baruch Hashem, the Rambam had good midas, and couldn't accept that he would be left to do something that's a midah meguna, and therefore I decided to write this book. All along Pharaoh's creation is Torah, but I already said there's a law. The law forbids writing it. The Feirush, a legal prohibition. Not only is there a formal legal prohibition, but it makes sense. This is not just a matter of legality. There's also an element that I have to think about what's taka correct. Yes, sir, al-kain. So he says three things. There's an Isur Torah, plus it's reasonable. Yes, sir, al-kain. Masha noidali mizayis noidali be-intuition v'hash'ara. What I know about this comes from my own intuition, my own speculation, and supposition. Loi ba b'liba hiskalas elokis. I didn't get revelation. Now I'm told us two things in this chapter so far that he's for sure going to die, okay, unless that wasn't it here, and he didn't have straight up nevuah. And there's a reason why I said straight up, because I'm assuming he's going to reference divine aid. But he said, I didn't have a revelation. So I don't know I didn't have a revelation
Does that mean he had other revelations? And other
That's
works?
an interesting question. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a revelation in this matter that Raiki says, but I didn't have a revelation in this. Mm-hmm. No divine revelation will come to me, okay? And what I believe about it, I didn't receive. So it's not revelation, and nor is it Kabbalah. Elo Herunik Suve Sefarim Hanavuim, Psukim of the prophetic books, Videre Chomim and Chazal, Yachad and Hanochis Iyuni Yishayuli, combined with certain assumptions. Interesting word to choose. What words do you have? Hanochis? Okay. Premises, certain premises. Tabi, what do we have there? Svar Manavuim? Yeah. Right. Good. So, in other words, Tanakh plus Chazal combined with certain premises that I have. Meaning I'm coming to the story with a certain approach. Sha'adavar ukach b'li safek. Put those three things together. My hanachas unius, which are the way I understand things, right? Plus Chazal and Tanakh indicate to me that undoubtedly things are this way. Now, he just contradicts himself, one of the most important contradictions. Now, could someone read to me that sentence, please? Just read the contradiction right there. Right before that. He says, Hadavar kach b'li safek, and then... Yeah. Right? Good. Excellent, fine. So what do you have? Good. That's a bad translation, because he says Davar in the first sentence, Inyan in the second sentence. Schwartz has that too, Davar and then Inyan. Very bad translation because, he has Davar twice, Kapach, which is correct, because in the Arabic, the Rambam used the exact same word, Amar, which is Davar or Inyan, and it's very important. The Rambam used the same word, and said, Hadavar hukach b'li safek, after shadavar shayne, or ha'inyan, whatever word you want to use, okay? This is a very, very important contradiction, which is Rambam Shmini Obey. I'm not going to talk about that today, but it seems to me, the Rambam said, Torah and Chazal, as they interact with my Hanachis.
He says this was written. I don't know.
Maybe one of those are wrong. Maybe his Hanachis are wrong, right? But? Wow. So Kapach says Rambam had a sense that he's going to be superseded one day. Yeah. No, because Rambam's going to explain Ma'aseh Merkava according to a cosmology that's outdated. Okay, fine. We'll get to that. But still, the Rambam said, what does Rambam mean when he says, I reached a point that I have no doubt that this is the way it is, but maybe it is. Maybe it's different. Okay. So the Rambam said three things why he can't, why he's stuck. There's a legal prohibition. It makes sense, and I'm not sure about whether I'm right. And for some reason, that last thing, it's not clear why that last thing is a factor. Okay? So you're not sure why you're right. So what? Right, your problem teaching Torah right. The problem is teaching Torah you're not sure of. No, but say this. So every time you teach Torah, you can say nearly. I'm not sure.
But it's nothing owed to anybody then.
Okay.
If he's still
very good.
since he didn't get it from somebody else, maybe he's wrong.
That's interesting too. That's interesting too. Right. Right. Very good. Right. It's not Kabbalah. It's not Bezgalos. Therefore, it might be wrong. And right. Exactly. So it's not just that. Therefore, it might be wrong. It's that therefore, what he's going to do is a very fundamental kind of innovation. It's not that he somehow can get us back to Ishvik B'Yish. Right. He's not. Maybe if he would say, Eliyahu Navi came to me, and Eliyahu Navi is still alive, and he's the Matik Shmuel who's going to keep the Messiah alive. Who knows that Torah. Fine, take now it's time to go back to Ishmael B'Yish. But if you're not doing that, then what are you doing? No, then you're doing something new, Mishpashit. So we'll get to that. This is the point of it. I'm saying he's doing something new. But let's see. So what's the solution? So he's in a bind, right? Hamachshava hamunchis, and a guided thought. Vasiyuah ha'alaki. So even though he says he didn't have his galus ha'alakas, he has divine aid. And what was the divine aid and his direction? They moved me to the matzav shetar lecha isay to the following situation. Who? Shavar lecha masha ami Yechezkel hanavi olav hashami. Ma'aseh Merkava is parak aleph of Yechezkel. Now here the Rambam for some reason all of a sudden started talking about Yechezkel. It's an important deal. So they talk about Ma'aseh Merkava. Ma'aseh Merkava means learning Yechezkel. No, now he starts talking about Yechezkel. The Mahalach is, I'll explain Yechezkel, Biur, in such a way of explaining, Shekashi Yishma Isai Kol Echad, when everyone hears that, Yachshev, Shlo Yamati Davar Noisef Mashkas Amarav. You read the next time in Prakim, you're going to think the Rambam is just, Ashani Mitargim Kavyochel Bituyim Misaf Lasaf. I'm translating from one language to another, one expression to another. Like Mesakem Esmashmos Pshat Advarim. You read the 7 Prakim that come, you'll think the Rambam is just translating it into another language or summarizing. Kashi is Remember the Rambam said in the beginning of this parak that the purpose of the Sefer is my separation, my cover in a way that's appropriate for a certain kind of individual for whom the book was written. When that person looks into the next 7 prakim, a certain kind of person. Plus, he's not just reading it, rather, Yishtad Lahavin is prakim, parak, with Suma Shalem Shalema. And he'll work to understand the prakim of the Sefer in general, so not just the 7 prakim. This person that the Sefer is for, and he discovered the Sefer, and he really gets into the mind of Rukum because he's the right person for it, and therefore he does all the work necessary to explain one chapter after the other with complete attention. Then he's going to read the next 7 prakim. Then he's and nothing's going to be hidden from him. So that's my solution. Not my solution. He was guided, the divine aid, to find this mahalach that I'm not allowed to write it, but I need to write it because I have a midah b'ra if I did it. On the other hand, and now he says, so what is this solving here? I'm on the one hand teaching to everyone because I'm writing it, and therefore it's available to anyone. You can't do that. You can't make it available to anyone. So how do I teach in a way that's available to everyone because it's a book? And Maisa can't say it beforish. Davar b'nois is it. Kim is chayiv, as is obligatory. I'm not allowed to say it beforish. So the solution is to write in such a way that only the intended audience, the one who it would be a midah to keep it away from, right? The Navach, the Talmud or Navach like him. Certain kind of people are the Talmidei Rambam that he would be stealing from or begrudging their inheritance. And so you have to write a book that's only going to hit them. Right? Get it?
Is the Hakdama with
right.
Goes back to, okay, if the person reading this is the one who's supposed to be reading this, then you'll be fine.
Right.
But he switches in the middle back to, okay, everyone else is going to read this and it has to be hidden from them.
Because you have to hide it. Right.
But if you're clearly writing for a specific set of people, then who cares who else is reading? They're not going to get it anyway.
That's what he's saying. So that he wrote it in a way, no, because you can write a book.
Somebody else is going to read it.
Right. You can write a book that it's intended for a certain audience and the wrong audience is going to read it and misunderstand it. That's a problem. But the way he did it, the other audience is not going to they will misunderstand it, but it's not that they're going to corrupt it. They're just going to think, oh, this is just a sikum, it's just a pshat, nothing interesting. That was the solution. After this introduction, pay attention to the prokim in this great topic. And lichbad haniska v'hagodl asheru yosid shakol toloi boy v'amud shakol neshama alav. Ma'aseh Makav is the peg upon which everything hangs, and it's the amud upon which everything hangs. Okay. Let's ask some questions here. So the Rambam is faced with the problem. The problem is that his Torah that he knows is going to be lost. Now, without getting into the midas aspect, okay, Rambam says it would leave him with bad midas. I want to ask a different question. Wouldn't it be the first time since the Torah got lost? The Rambam found a bug, so to speak, in Mesilas Torah. There's a problem with Mesilas Torah. Mesilas Torah, eventually, what?
Those smichos is bad.
Right. So Mesilas Torah at a certain point stopped working. So let's see if we can figure out which point, okay? But let me state with a question in a very clear way. Mesilas Torah stopped working at a certain point because it was Baal Peh. And, okay, was that a problem? Was that a problem? When it comes to halacha, same problem arose. See, because the Rambam was madigish. The reason why it got forgotten was because it was oral transmission. So the same risk cause halacha to be forgotten. The Rambam says in the Furish, in Chelik Aleph, Perek Ayin Aleph. I'll read it to you. The great chachmas that were in our nation that can verify the truth of these matters, avdu. They got lost. Why? Begal orech hazman, begal shtaltus ha'umas haburas aleinu. Long time, and the umas that ruled over us. These things, this weren't mutter for everyone. Kvisha is bad. Okay. So right away he says, long time. It wasn't forgotten until, I don't know, Akiva knew it. So it was forgotten after a long time, and because of the Golas, the Shtaltas Umas Aburis, and because it wasn't for everyone. What was for everyone? So you say halacha or nigla. He says, the only thing that was available for everyone was text. Even halacha, Teresh Vapeh, which you see the Rambam is saying, it's good to see inside if you want to take any of the additions. The Rambam is saying, Chelik Aleph Perek Ayin Aleph, or you have it in yours. You go back to Chelik Aleph Perek Ayin Aleph. What the Rambam is saying is that the fact that Torah Shabbat wasn't written down can be phrased as the Torah is not mutter for everyone. What's mutter for everyone is the books, what's written. Those things that were given orally are asur for a person who doesn't come to a Rebbe to learn. The fact that it was designed such that you cannot learn it unless you have a Rebbe is a way of saying, is a way of putting into reality this concept that it's not mutter for everyone. You have to be a Talmud. There's rules about who you can teach, right? Even Torah Shabbat, even halacha. It's not for everyone. Yeah, the minimum you have to be someone who comes to yeshiva.
He's going under the assumption that there is every generation or in every time period there's going to be people that have intellectual ability to understand these things.
No. What things? Sisei Torah or halacha?
Anything about that.
No, because halacha would have been forgotten if not for the fact that they wrote it down.
Right, but what was not written down, meaning things that are only to be understood by certain people, presupposes that in every generation in the future we'll have somebody that could be understood by people.
Well, till it's forgotten.
Who says that's true?
Till it's forgotten. No, I don't know why you're saying that. Why
what if there's a generation when nobody has intellectual capability?
Oh, you mean the original design? The original design was supposed to be Bechem Mazaka and Rabbi Akiva, right? It's supposed to be someone in each generation that can.
Now, what if that stopped?
Right, and it did stop. Maybe it did stop. Perhaps it did stop. Perhaps it did. It's an interesting question, right? When it stopped, in other words, it's a very interesting question. When it did stop, was it because in that generation there was no one Roy, or because he didn't meet the Rebbe? Right. Okay, that's an interesting question. But there's a much more basic question, which is, like we said before, what was the plan, right? Now, when it goes into halacha, he says even halacha wasn't written in books. The only thing that everyone was allowed to learn was what was written, and the rule was and then the Rambam goes into why that's so important. It's a very wise thing that the Torah shouldn't be written down. By the Torah not being written down, we avoided what happened recently, and we have it even more so. All different opinions. Okay. Sorry. So everything was given to living people. Sanhedrin Agam. There was no Torah that you can have an opinion on. The Torah is in the minds of the body that's authorized to define it. That's the Rambam says. And that was important. If they refrained from eternalizing halacha in a book that anyone could open and read, because of the kilkel that it would bring to, and the Taka brought to, right? He wants the Taka brought to that kilkel. Certainly you can't write Sisei Torah so anyone could open it up and read it. Fine. This is the reason why these great ikrim were cut off from our nation. He says there's nothing small or large. Here he says, but there's Ramazim. These are tiny kernels. He says, they're shells. You can't penetrate the real meaning. Fine. So the Rambam says that it got lost from the nation because It's Bapeh. And it's not supposed to be written. Even halacha is not supposed to be written, but then they decided to write it. They had to write it, yeah? So, so good. So now, halacha, Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Let's talk about Yehuda Nasi. Why did he write that halacha? Rambam says in Akdama to Mishnah Torah because this Rabbi had tzares and he knew Klal Yisrael was going into Galus. And the Rambam says over here in Ayin Aleph also that what caused it to be forgotten eventually? Erech HaZman and the Shtalta Sa'umis, right? At a certain point, things get... Something happens. Something happens, and that's when things are no longer... Lama Asa Rabbeinu HaKadosh Kach V'lo Hiniach Hadavar K'may Shehaya, to write things down. L'fi Shera HaTalmidim Asma'atim V'hochim V'atzaras Mischatshus V'bois Mamlechas HaRishah Peshetes B'olam Mizgabes V'som Mizgagul V'hochim L'Ktzavis. Malchus Arodim Peshetes, to Shtaltos Umus Aburis, Klal Yisrael spreading apart, there's not going to be able to be this Messiah of Bapeh. So the original design of the Torah was that there should be a Messiah of Torah Shabbat, and it works. It works as long as Klal Yisrael is not in Golus. We say? Roughly. Rabbeinu HaKadosh knows that this is the end. Golus is really coming. There's a Mashah about this, I forget where. I think it's in Sanhedrin. Actually quoted my Sefer, but I'm not sure I got that. Malka v'Sura Bagoyim Ein Torah is when the Shnei Alafim Torah came to an end, which is the year 240, which is basically after the days of Rav, time of Rebbe. That's when the Golus really started. The Mashal says that's cool. The Golus didn't really start until then. There was still yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael, Tanoim in Eretz Yisrael. There was still a big issue. But point is that Rebbe foresaw that the Messiah of Torah Shabbat Peh is no longer going to work the old way, right? So he wrote it down. Okay. He didn't write down Sisri Torah. So why did Rebbe write down Sisri Torah? Why isn't it necessary? Well, if Sisri Torah were necessary back once upon a time, and now that we face it, see us that there's going to be lost, why don't you preserve Sisri Torah?
Just for your feet.
Preserve the Yechid. What?
So why is Rambam doing it?
Why is Rambam doing it? Right. Moshe. Why is he smarter than Rabbi Yehuda Nasi? So I want you to look at this. I want you to look at a psicha, one of the psichas. Some has like psicha, Domat Sava, whatever. It's on page. I'm going to read from page 1920. I'm sorry, in the Schwartz edition. If you give me, I can show you what it is. Maybe Chelik Aleph. I'll show you in a second. The Rambam talks about his conundrum and the fact that he's doing something innovative, sort of breaking the law by writing down Sisri Torah. Talks about that in a few places. Okay, one of them is I've done what we're learning now. Another one is in Chelik Beis Perek Chav Tes, where where in the Hakdama to Nice Liberations. Nice Liberations is in Chelik Beis Perek Lamed, and Chelik Beis Perek Chav Tes. At the end of the parak, he goes into this whole thing about you're not allowed to write, I have to write. What am I going to do? And what we're going to look at right now. In the Tzavoas Sefer, where he tells you how to learn the Sefer. Paragraph number 5. Hakelis al Yodea. God knows. Shetamid Yeresi Ma'id Ma'id. I was always very afraid. I was always very afraid to write things I'm intending to write. Mikivan Shem Divrei Sefer. Shlo Nichtav Aleim Sefer Ba'uma Bimei HaGolos Ha'ele. In Golos, there's no Sefer written about them. How could I do an innovation and write about things that weren't written about in Golos?
Sing Rebbe wrote it.
What?
Sing Rebbe did write it.
No, Rebbe didn't write it because Rebbe was planning for Golos, and in Golos we don't have Sisri Torah. We don't have Sisri Torah. No, before Golos,
It was written.
yeah, Yechezkel, Nevi'im. Nevi'im wrote Sfar. But in Golos, there was never a Sefer written. That means Rebbe, who wrote the Mishnah for Golos.
See, not our Golos. Stop Golos. Okay.
What?
I thought it was referring to different Golos. Okay.
No, his Golos.
His
That was, I'm saying, starting from the year 240. Yeah, let's say reading with the Mashah. Let's see if I can tell you that Mashah was wrong. I'm gonna pick a date and make it very clear cut so we can. And of course, nothing is so exact like that. But it doesn't work that way. But this would just be helpful. The Shah says, "Achash Golu Yisrael Golus Gemura Ein Bahem Torah." This is Malchus Rebbe Goim Ein Torah. But till the end of the 12 from Torah, the Gemara says the 12 from Torah, which, like I said, end of the year 240, it's still called Shnois Torah because it was still Tanoim after Rebbe's death. The Gover HaGolus, Rabu Hatzaris, the Kol Yimei HaTorah. Okay, so Rambam says in Golos there was never a book about Sisei Torah. The case of Chadash and Yichidish V'Echtav Alei. In other words, back in the day there were Nevi'im doing it, but in Golos this was not considered a Golos thing. It's not a Golos thing to be Isaac and Sisei Torah. That's the Gemara in Gittin he's referring to, which says that you could write down Svarim that are not supposed to be written down. I think it's a fair Gadata, maybe the Gemara was talking about. Hashniya Mash'amur Chol Ma'asech Yulashim Shemayim. Chol Ma'asech Yulashim Shemayim, the Rambam is Marich L'Shemar Prakim. That is a rule of B'chol Drachecha De'eu Afilu D'var Aveira. That there's a mahalach in life with Kol Ma'asech Yulashim Shemayim, and someone who's taking that mahalach in life is allowed to bend the law. Doesn't mean he's allowed to eat chazer necessarily, but these kinds of isurim. Another place where Rambam references it in the Geras Teimon. How did Reb Sadi go in Mechashav Kitzim if you're not in Mechashav Kitzim? Kol Ma'asech L'Shem Shemayim. Yenisar isurim, right? These kinds of isurim. Ein Darshan Ma'aseh Bereshis, Ein Darshan Ma'aseh Kova, Tipach Chush Mechashav Kitzim. I don't know exactly how you can magda those isurim, but everyone knows those isurim are different than Shatnez and Nevela. And Muktzah and Shabbos. I'm not saying because they're rice no, right? It's a different, certain kind of isur. And that isur, Kol Ma'asech Yulashim Shemayim and Eis L'Aseh L'Hashem, helpful. Ashtei ha'anochas eilis tamachtim asher kasadu v'nipusat. These are the two hanachas. So, like I said, the Rambam talks about his innovation of writing in a few different places, and what you have to do is put it together, put them all together, and you also have to ask, why does Rambam need to revisit the issue of writing it every time, and what's he doing here? Very important questions. But I want to be medayik. The question was like this. The question we're talking about is Sister Torah going to be lost with the Rambam's death? Okay, Sister Torah already lost once. That was one question. The other question is Taka. Okay, you ask the question another way. Why didn't Rabbi Yehuda Nasi see fit to do the same thing that Rambam did, just to preserve it some way before it gets lost? Which is exactly what he had to do for the halacha. As Rambam says in Ilik Aleph Perek Ayin Aleph. Same exact risk faced halacha, and Rebbe was facing the fact that we can't let halacha be forgotten. The original design of the Torah is such that halacha is going to be forgotten. Yeah? So let halacha be forgotten. Teretz's original design of the Torah it wasn't designed for Galus. It wasn't designed for Galus. It was designed for Klal Yisrael. And they're not Ben Umis, Shtat Sapurim, and so on and so forth, right? So the design of Torah, Kifri Mashahi, with all its rules, is designed for a Tkuf of Gul. Now Rebbe says, I see what's coming. So what are we supposed to do now? We have to innovate. We have to change. Change is happening to us regardless of whether we choose it or not. The whole framework of the Torah is being pulled out from under our feet, and so we have to. Okay, now how do you change the law while still preserving the law? Meaning, you're not allowed to write the law. Okay, so there's rules about. It's called Eis Lasis, Kol Ma'asech Yulashim Shemayim. Who's allowed to make these innovations? The Rambam is allowed to. The Sagi is allowed to. Rabbi Nasi is allowed to. It's very, very important. Very important sugi, which I think we'll go into next time. Who's allowed to, and what it says about the Gavra, because it's really very important to this whole shmuz we're talking about now. Sisvei Torah, Rebbe says. Okay, Sisvei Torah also going to be lost. Let them get lost. Let them get lost. And I think that's what Rambam means when he says that extra sentence in Medayik in the Psicha over here in Chelik Shlishi, where he says, Kach Roi Hoya Shekachi Asala. First, he already said, this is why it got lost because it was given in Bapeh. Then he adds another sentence. This was supposed to happen. This is appropriate to happen. He means to say, this is fine. This is not shot as Rambam discovered a flaw. Sisvei Torah by design, all Torah by design gets lost by Galus. But that's not acceptable.
Except he
It's
said
not acceptable.
Sisvei Torah is acceptable.
Sisvei Torah being lost for Galus is acceptable. And therefore, me to write a sefer, which was never done in Galus, what am I doing? Okay. So what is the Rambam doing? pass me a cup of water, please. So what is Rambam doing? So now let's go a little deeper into the hashkach. If we're talking about what happened to the Torah, what was God's plan, right? God's plan when He designed the Torah was that it should be forgotten in Galus. And then, obviously, God somehow relied on us to figure out that we shouldn't let it be forgotten. But Sisrei Torah don't belong in Galus. And there's a very, very important reason for that, by the way, because Sisrei Torah are associated with Nevuah. In a certain sense, the Moreh Nevuah is a guide to Nevuah. We don't have Nevuah in Galus.
So is that why he dafka makes a point of saying he didn't get it from this gal?
Oh, Mele, if he had Nevuah, so he'd be heralding the Mashiach. Nice, he didn't have it.
Well, why does he assume that if he figured, just like he figured it out,
Yeah.
why can't others figure it out?
Because he's the Rambam. He's the Rambam. So this is what's happening over here. We have to understand, what does it mean that the Rambam figured it out? Nothing has been made.
But that's not the threshold of somebody that can understand it, so they
Right.
can figure it out.
Right. Correct. No. The Haraya. The Haraya. It had to once. What? Yeah, and also even back in the day, it had to be given by Kabbalah. No, we didn't say.
It had to be given
Let you know, if you're Rabbi Akiva, figure it out. What do you need to be Chazaka? No. And now something very interesting happened in history, which is that those secrets, which by design were left to be forgotten, because we're not in Hashem's land, we're not prophets, were rediscovered. What's going on? Were maybe rediscovered. Now you see the maybe not. But if they were rediscovered, what does that mean?
That's the
It means Galus is over.
And then why that last line that maybe it's not?
So Mela, if I was certain Galus was over. So I'm not sure what would have been
So
different.
why he didn't figure it out? Because
No.
it's not over?
No, he's positive
Oh,
he figured it
you
out.
want to forget my
Yeah.
friend? No.
He's positive.
Father, I'm brought into Galus.
Oh, he did.
I think so. Okay, well, that's a different schmooze.
When did Tzien even came?
Aaron was the first.
Tzien.
Maimonides is the first Messianic Jew.
Tzien.
My most recent comment, cryptic comment, and that's because of this Torah. That the Rambam said, wait a second, the Torah that was supposed to be lost in Golos, and Rebbe said, let it be lost in Golos, and Taka happened, Kachuroi, all of a sudden, maybe reappearing in me. What does that mean? So now, if it Vadai reappeared, so then what? So now we have all these rules, and so on and so forth, but of course the rules have to change, because
Why?
I'm going to die. No.
No, because then in theory, if he thinks that Golos is ending,
So let's say
he's
if
brought
he's
it back.
certain, if he certainly discovered the secrets that are really prophetic secrets,
Right, then he
that
should
means
only
God's
be able
over.
to give over Pal
He's
back.
not sure.
Right? No, but he's going to die. But on the same time, he's
He's
going to
still give
die.
over Pal back. Go find somebody else.
That's Tamakash. No. That's Tamakash. I told you. This is his Talmud and Gazar Hakil that they should separate. Whatever that means. So many Nakudas. Every single Nakuda needs Ian and understanding. You know, there's only we can't focus. We can't work out each aspect. Maybe we will. Hopefully in the coming soon. That's what we should do. Is focus on each of these aspects and make them make sense. But Hashem decreed that they should separate. Now, if he's the Mashiach or whatever, or Eliyahu Navi, then what? Then you know. By the way, you know who says this? The Mukabalim are very busy. I started looking for sources, but I pushed in a lot of time to here. That now we could teach the Torah openly because now it's a Mashiach. Because it's that idea.
But then he wouldn't doubt it.
No, but he did doubt it.
That's what I'm saying.
No, that's a
But
suffix.
he did doubt it.
Right.
So then he doesn't know.
He's a suffix
But
Mashiach.
he
He's
would
a suffix
know.
Eliyahu Navi.
He wouldn't know.
I don't know. Everyone thinks so. Eliyahu Navi knows that Mashiach knows he's Mashiach. What's happens? It's Talmud myth. It's a urban
Do you
legend.
know who you are?
Yeah,
he
no.
provided-
Hello, you know what Mashiach is? The person who discovers Sisrei, who could tell us Sisrei Torah and bring back the. Let's say that's the definition of a Eliyahu Navi. I don't know, whatever. I don't mean, I obviously don't mean Elijah the prophet literally. I mean the herald of Mashiach. Whatever. What's the herald of Mashiach? If the Sisrei Torah are back, that means that the Nevuah is back.
So why is
So
he
it's
doubting
not about
if
the
it's bad?
Gavra, because he's
Well, why
doubting
is he
whether
doubting?
what he knows is in fact the lost Judaism. He's Mesopik if he rediscovered the lost Judaism. You understand what's going on over here?
So is
It
this
sounds
something
like
whether
the Rambam
he-
has a suffix whether he rediscovered the Judaism and was allowed to lapse into the Golas.
So you're saying he has a suffix whether he got it right or whether Golos is ending.
That's a very interesting question, and that has to do with that other question that he says himself in Bay. It is this way, maybe it's not this way.
And that wouldn't.
What is that stuff, right? You see how it's related?
But that wouldn't require nevuah.
What?
Though, if that's what he believes is happening, that wouldn't have to be door nevuah.
Well, it's an interesting point
He says it's not.
because see, here's the thing. As I mentioned, it's very interesting. Most people don't not makdim the shroom by saying you should know this is not a nevuah.
Right.
You only say that if there's a psahava, right?
Right.
And as I'm telling you, the whole point of nevuah was supposed to bring you to nevuah. And the whole idea that's happening in this parak is that here's something that was allowed to lapse when we're not Nevi'im, when we're in Gullus, and
Right.
maybe it came back, which is then allowed, like as you just said, suggests that there should be nevuah, right?
And like, you did get it from nevuah.
Right. So the Rambam, despite that, I didn't get nevuah. It's not a pshat. It's a good shaila. It's a good shaila. It's a good shaila.
That's a little bit of a steer to what he's thinking.
That's right. It's a good question. Why did the Rambam get nevuah? And it's a very interesting question. Now, it has to do with a different question. I think we spoke about this last year. I think this is what I focused on last year's things. That the Rambam is soiser about whether there's a possibility of nevuah in Chutz La'aretz. Whether the fact that there's no nevuah in Chutz La'aretz is that a din, Hashem is meneim nevuah in Chutz La'aretz, or is it due to circumstances that will allow for it? Big questions, very big questions. You're asking a lot of good questions, and I don't know the answers to all these questions. I want to focus on this one coup. That the Rambam is doing something that Rabbi Nasi didn't think it's necessary to do because Taka wasn't necessary to do. Galus is supposed to do its thing, but if Galus is supposed to do its thing, as we keep on getting to, the Rambam did something that Rabbi Akiva didn't do. Rabbi Akiva needed it for Kabbalah, and the Rambam rediscovered it. What's going on over here? Verstehst du myself? What does that mean? That's what Rambam's faced with. What does it mean that I, Rambam, may have rediscovered? I think, I'm not 100% sure. I am sure, but I'm not sure, right? I'm sure and I'm not sure, whatever that means. I'm both certain and uncertain that I rediscovered the Torah that had to be given for Kabbalah. Stays. What are the implications of that? That there's some job upon me to get things going again. And let me tell you a very deep steer that's in this parak. The Rambam indicates that if I don't write it down, it's going to be lost. Why? Why can't you give a pal pad? If I don't write it down, it's going to be lost from you, right? Because he says when I die, they're going to be lost. Why, when he dies, it's going to be lost? Why can he tell it to him? Why can he tell it to him? The Rambam says if I don't write it down, it will disappear when I die. Why can I teach it to you orally? Because he wasn't there. The Talmud wasn't there, right? That's this is for some reason. This is his person, yeah. And as he writes in the introduction, God decreed that we should separate. Okay. Now, if the things wouldn't have disappeared with the Rambam's death, if he would have been able to talk to him, he would have told it to him. What is that going to do? It didn't work the first time. Torah Shabbat doesn't work for Sisei Torah. It actually doesn't even work for halacha either. It only works till it stops working.
It worked for a while.
Right. Oh, so you want to say, let's get it going, let's get another good couple hundred years. I think the answer is, the Rambam thought maybe the fact that he rediscovered it means we're on the cusp of an era. Or no, it will work. No, it won't be forgotten. Because if Golus is over, right. I don't only need to write it down because we're not facing each other. It's going to be lost when I die. No, I'm saying there's a diak in the parak that's mashma. The Rambam would be happy to tell it to him orally, except that Maisa we're not face to face. So when I die, it's going to disappear. And I have a question on that. Why would the Rambam imply that all he needs is to give it to his Talmud? What's that going to solve? If you just got finished saying how Mesiras Balpeh doesn't work for Sisvei Torah, it doesn't work for any Torah.
Because he's on the cusp.
Elamai, the Rambam understood that by his rediscovery of the Sisvei Torah, it perhaps means we're turning back the clock to Yeshaya Hanavi.
Which would allow him
which means
to
we're
write it down as well.
No, so that's the question. That's just it. Oh, so then you can write it down as well. Okay, that's an interesting question. Right. Oh, because they wrote it back in the day.
Right.
Well, the thing is like this. No, that's wrong. Because they wrote Nevuah, and they didn't have Nevuah. They didn't write Sisvei Torah. No, they didn't write Torah Shabbat Pen. They didn't write the Torah Shabbat. Yechezkel didn't write a Pirush, and Yechezkel wrote Yechezkel.
But the question is if this is Nevuah. Really.
No. The Rambam knows it's not. No, the Rambam says in Forsh it's not Nevuah. No. The question is whether the fact that he rediscovered the Torah Shabbat Peh of Ma'aseh Migration, Ma'aseh Makava, means that we're on the cusp of the era of Nevuah, which is when we're supposed to know this Torah. Okay. So I think we'll leave it at that for now. What we need to talk about, there's so many different aspects we opened up with this discussion. But one of the things we need to talk about, I just want to focus briefly on, just tell you what we have to get to is, I mentioned this before, Baruch Hashem Rambam had good midas, and the whole gift of the Moreh Nevuchim hinged on the fact that the Rambam wouldn't have done something that is bad midas, right? Now we have to understand what that means. First of all, here I'm telling you everything's about this thing. What is it? Is it about, Katan Shem Shlach the midas? Or is it about, we discovered the third Klai, so why should it disappear? Well, all of a sudden it's about bad midas, right? And B'chlal, why, since when are bad midas, why are bad midas the thing that's going to override a legal prohibition plus the svara plus the mature, right? So what's the focus of midas here? What's the focus of midas here, and how does it tie into the point that we're making at the Rambam? We discovered a lost Torah, and he has a role in history. He has a role in history, right? Now, to your question of should we look back and say the Rambam was wrong? I don't think so. No. I mean, Kabbalah came into its own in the 13th century. The Rambam writes in the Geras Tema that I have a shir about this, that the Rambam had a Messiah back from the Bayis Rishon. You know about this? He had a Messiah from his aunt. He's very interesting why he writes this. I'm not sure why he writes this. He has a Messiah from his ancestors who went to Spain back from Bayis Rishon. And when the pasuk says in Balak, Ka'es Ya'amar Yaakov Yisrael Ma'pa Akel. Ka'es means like this: take the amount of time that elapsed from creation till Bilam said those words. Ka'es, in a similar amount, after a equal amount of years lapse, which brings us to the year 1215 or so, which is 10 years after Rambam's Nifter, or something like that. Ka'es, once again, there will be Nevuah, and Ka'es will be asked Ma'pa Akel. Bilam is saying the return of Nevuah is going to happen in the year 1216, 1220, something like that. Bayis Rishon. Which is very interesting because there's no other source for this in all the literature. There is a Yushalmi in the Sefer in Shabbos that says it. Why don't I reference Yushalmi? But if the Olam in that time had this Messiah that Nevuah was coming back in 20 years from now, how come you never find second range except for this Rambam in the Geras Tema? Akabadim Nevuah was supposed to come back in the 13th century, and we have Tosfos quotes of Ezra Hanavi twice. Tosfos getting Tosfos Shmulis. Later on, Malafia called him himself a Navi. Kids, also you have people who are Nevi'im. And you have Kabbalah, which is a path to Nevuah. So I think that Rambam did bring back the whole prophetic studies.
Except he makes a very, very clear point of saying this. I didn't get this from Nevuah.
I didn't. Right.
It's almost like he's protesting.
I didn't get. No. I think we have to understand that very well. It's something to do with, maybe the suffix. In other words, there's two things to focus on. There's what's mechayiv him to do what he did, and what are the deaths. So what's mechayiv him to do what he did is that he may have actually discovered the keys to prophecy, which is the Torah Shabbat Ma'aseh and then the whole Moreh Nevuchim. He may have discovered the keys. What are the implications of that? That the time is now it's Gula time, and we have to start teaching we have to bring back the Torah Shabbat Peh. And I bet somebody would teach you about Peh, but you're not here. And by the way, Rambam would have loved to teach about Peh, because then
started doing it.
No, but also then the Manushach. If it's talk at the time of Gula, so then we Torah Shabbat Peh is great. So and if not, no. So again, Avad, like you said, back in the day they wrote Nevuah, straight up Nevuah, not Torah Shabbat Peh. But the Rambam's not doing that. Mitzad Sheni, it's not as Galas Alakas, which suggests that whatever the Rambam attained in this matter is only a haskalah, something like that, right? It's only a haskalah. So maybe I don't know. Maybe he's shouldn't be doing this, That's I think what the fact that it's not as Galas Alakas means, that even in Tumtzalem that the Rambam did discover the path back to Nevuah, he's clearly only starting on that path because it wasn't as Galas Alakas, and therefore he's not sure whether we can already start teaching it again. So he has to hedge it. And that's one way to read it. But that's we need nine in each of these particular points. Okay. Next week I think we'll talk about the
When he says on the
midas.